In this video, I'm going to teach you about major scales. When I learned major scales for the first time, it really revolutionized my playing. And a lot of things that I thought were complicated, they became simpler. And at the same time, a lot of things I didn't understand, they became a lot easier for me to understand. So it's going to be a two-part video. This first part, I'm going to show you how to find the notes of the scale, and in the second one I'm gonna show you how to practice it like a pro. So let's get into it. So we have the C major scale. So that's the easiest scale that we know because it only has white notes, right? It would almost be like, okay, I'm just telling you, just play all the white notes starting from C to C. Okay? That's what it looks like, but that's not what it is, because you gotta be able to do that same thing on all the different keys, right? And as you can see, this, even though here with the white note it looks like the spaces in between them are the same, equal, but they're really not. How do we know which notes to play for a major scale? You have to understand whole step and half step. In a previous video we already explained that. So what a half step is, a whole step is basically two half steps. Okay, half step is easier to explain. So if I have C, for example, a half step would be the next closest note to it. So C sharp is a half step away from C, right? So if I have F, for example, F sharp is gonna be a half step up and E is gonna be a half step down. So basically a half step is the closest note to whichever note we're talking about. If I have B, for example, the next closest note to B up is gonna be C, right? There's no note in the middle. So C is the next closest note, so that's a half step up, and a half step down would be to B flat. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So once you understand half step and whole step, and a whole step would be, for example, if I'm coming from C, my whole step would be D. Okay, because my half step is C sharp, so the next half step, that would be a whole step. So half plus half equals 1. Okay, same here. If I have E, my whole step would be F sharp up, because I need to have two half steps to get one whole step. So from E I would have 1 and 2. So E and F sharp are a whole step away. And if I'm going a whole step down, that would be D, because I have to go 1, 2. Okay? So the only thing that can make it confusing if you only looking at the white note. But if you're looking at all the notes, it's easy, right? So for example, we have what we call the chromatic scale, which is basically a scale made of half notes only, right? I go from C, I go to the next closest note. Next note is D. Next note is E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C, right? I can keep going like this. So that's what we call the chromatic scale. So that's why when I'm giving you guys practices and I say go up chromatically, it means once you're done with C, you go to C sharp, you go to D, you go to E flat, E, F, right? So basically that's what a chromatic scale is. There's also a whole tone scale, which is basically made of whole notes only. So if I'm coming from C, I would go to D, E, F sharp, A flat, B flat, and then C. So, right? So that's only whole notes. So hope you get the concept of whole note, whole steps and half steps. So now once we get that out of the way, we can go for the major scales. Now for my major scales, I have this formula. I play the root note, I add whole step, and then half step, whole step, and then half step. So from C, if I'm playing C major, for example, I have 1, 2 whole steps, and then 1 half step, and then I'm gonna have 3 more whole steps, 1, 2, 3, and then one last half step. So root note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, so if I'm playing F, for example, so remember the formula. I have 2 whole steps, 1 half step, and then 3 whole steps, and then 1 half step. So from F, I have whole step, and then I'm gonna have a half step, which is basically gonna be the next closest note, B flat, and then whole step, I skip B, whole step, and then half step. So, right? If I'm doing G, whole step, half step, whole step, one last whole step, so I skip this note, and then half step. Right? Let's try one with the black notes. If I have F sharp, for example, I go whole step, I skip G, whole step, I skip F, whole step, now a half step, which is gonna be the next closest note, B, whole step, and then half step. Okay? Okay? So that can be hard. You know, your first scale, which is basically the major scale, which is usually the first scale people learn, it's always going to be the hardest, because you have to understand a lot of things. You have to understand whole step and half steps. You have to, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to learn. You have to play the correct fingering and all of that. But once you can play major scales, all the subsequent scales are going to be a lot easier. You have the formula. You can use that formula to get the notes of a scale, and then you can try to memorize it by practicing, by getting used to it, or you can just get used to the sound. Okay, if someone who's more by ear than by math, if your ear is better than your math, you can just go by the sound. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 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 So basically, they're all gonna have the same sound, right? The same sound. It's always gonna be do da 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 da. So, okay. So if you don't want to do all the math, just go with your ear. And then what matters is that at the end of it, you can play all the notes without mistake. For example, if you're going by your ear, you're doing F, you can do da 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 da. Ah, no, that doesn't sound right. Da 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 da. Right? So you're probably gonna make a lot more mistakes than if you use the formula. But at the end of the day, what matters is that you get the notes, right? Okay, so now the fingering is gonna be different for each hand. For the right hand, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you so much for taking the time to practice with us, to watch this video. I hope you also practice it and took notes, wrote them down, so that you don't have to struggle when we get to the second part where you have to practice them and put them in application. Please press the like button if you got some value out of this video, and share it with someone else. I'll see you in the next one, where I'm gonna show you how to practice them.